Good morning,
I didn't have to bring
everyone.
this up here.
So we have got such a great panel of speakers today, and I'm really excited to hear what they are going to tell us about how to help people grow in their careers and how you can then use that as a competitive advantage for your companies to recruit and retain talent. We've got some really experienced executives ready to tell you about where they've found the most success. So first off, it'd be great if each of the panelists could introduce themselves. So let's start with Monica.
Yes, Monica Green. I'm with State Street, head of early careers and talent pipelines.
Hi, everyone. I am Melanie Moore, and I lead talent acquisition for the Building Automation Division of Honeywell.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Eldridge Banks, and I lead the HR team for the Georgia market here with Kaiser Permanente.
And I'm Jason Bergamy, Managing Director of SHL in the Americas.
All right, so these are all some really wonderful executives who have some great insights to share. And let's start off with a really great question. Looking at, we've all had challenges in recruiting talent in a competitive marketplace. So I'd love to hear, what are the ways that career development can be used as a competitive advantage here for recruitment and retention? And Eldridge, how about we start with you?
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, when I think about, competitive advantage, one of the things that we look at when we're hiring is really looking at the total compensation package, right? And so, you have your wage, your benefits, and those type things. But I must add that we also have a pension, which is rare, so I just want to put that out there. But one of the other things that we also have is just the focus on development. So we have a trust, Ben Hutnell Trust, that is specifically for development. And so, of course, you may have tuition reimbursement and things like that, but it also is about other skills that are just not, related to college and those type things. So emotional intelligence, cultural dependence, those type things, to really make us understand how you can take your career to the next level. And so as an example, we have a radiologist that was doing very well in career, chose to take some opportunities with the trust and get some more social skills, if you will. And she turned that into a social work degree and now is in a completely different field working for it, all while using that trust from a development standpoint. So truly making sure that we're focused on that retention effort across the board.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. I can add to that as well. At Honeywell, we have a system that we call Accelerator, and there's literally thousands of classes that are self-driven by yourself to take within that accelerator tool. And it can really be on any topic. So you can go in and do a search and find things on speaking, communication, written communication, but then there's also business related courses as well. So if you have an interest in a different part of the business, you can learn about that part of the business within that accelerator tool. So that's one of the things that we really promote within Honeywell for development too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love to chime in on that too, but to do a little bit of a spin and kind of pivot into more so recruiting. When we think about how we go about recruiting, we definitely leverage the folks that we have too. So really talking about the culture of the organization, letting our people help sell us as well. So that's always been an advantage for us too.
Yeah.
Great. So thanks so much for sharing about those programs. I wanted to ask about another challenge that a lot of people are familiar with, which is, when everyone at work is just trying to execute and do their jobs well, it can be hard for some people in your workplace to think longer term. So I'd love to hear how you make sure your employees are prioritizing career growth and that they take advantage of the programs that your company has to offer. Melanie, if you could tell us about that.
Absolutely. So at Honeywell, and this was new to me when I came to the organization, but we have one day a month that's called Development Day. So every third Thursday, everyone in the company is supposed to clear their calendars and focus on their own development. And I just think that is just so great that a company is really making sure that everyone takes time to focus on that development. So that's a lot of time when people do classes in that accelerator tool that I just mentioned. There's also a lot of webinars that happen on those days. So whether it's, I'm thinking from an HR perspective since I work in HR, but we'll have sessions on new legal things that come up for HR on those days. We'll also have sessions on inclusion and diversity, career management skills, like those type of topics and webinars. And it's always falling on those days to ensure that everyone is available to participate. So it's just a really great initiative that Honeywell has really stood behind to ensure that their employees are getting development.
Great. Another question that I have for the panel is about, how you approach strategies to make sure that everyone in your workplace has a path to advancement. How you ensure that you have an inclusive approach. So, Monica, can you tell us about your workplace?
Sure. So, kind of piggybacking off what she said as far as Development Day. We really do press upon our team members to take development within their own hands. We talk about the philosophy of managing up as well. Don't put all of your development, your ability to grow within the organization in your manager's hand. Take it for yourself. We have a methodology and we just implemented a new program called Skills First, which enables everyone within the organization to first talk about or highlight what are they good at, what are their strong suits, and to have it to be measured. And then the system will also give them tidbits or they'll get some feedback from either their peers or their manager to also enhance those things. And so really taking your skills and your development and putting it in your own hands, being able to leverage the skills, or not necessarily the skills, but the resources that we have. We do have monies available for every employee to leverage for their development. We strongly encourage them to leverage that, whether that means going back to college, taking a course, or leveraging the resources that we have available through our programs like Degreed. But taking it within your own hands. Don't wait for someone else to tell you, hey, you need to work on this. You should be taking that for yourself. And you do. We encourage our team members to hold their managers accountable too, to having the discussions, making sure that you're talking about what can I do better or how can I continue to grow.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would comment as well, because it makes sense, you do have to take that control, is making sure that you take control as far as having a mentor or sponsor, you taking the responsibility to make sure that you are connecting with someone that you see who's done well and then driving that forward. So totally makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
One addition to that, just quickly, is we're seeing more and more organizations want to provide tangible feedback to employees so that they can kind of own their own development. I think we all in this room would like for managers to do a better job of sharing feedback and articulating what an individual needs to do to develop their own skills. A lot of organizations are asking employees to go through the process, taking short assessments to better understand themselves, highlights what skills they need to develop, what kind of assignments might be really leveraging their strengths and which might be a stretch, so that if they step into those opportunities, they at least know kind of where they're going to need to build up some capability, maybe seek input from a mentor or a peer or a manager to help them in that journey. So equipping people, giving them the tools to kind of own their own development continues to be a growing trend.
Mm-hmm. I want to add one more thing. We talk about developing your skills and things like that, but I also want to highlight just the power of networking within the organization and always seeking a sponsor. I'm head of early careers, and I tell every new person that joins the organization, you're going to have to meet at least 50 people. And they're like, 50 people? And I say, yes, at least 50. And you're going to meet them within your first 6 months. I'm not going to prescribe it. It could be a coffee chat. It could be an elevator conversation. But I want to see that you've met 50 people, because as you build your network within your organization, which will enable you to identify folks who can be your sponsor. And a sponsor is not the same thing as a mentor. I know everybody knows that. But to identify those folks, so that is absolutely a part of your growth and your development. And even more so sometimes, it could be almost even more important.
Yeah. Building a relationship, right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's some really interesting advice and great a great idea for everyone to consider. And also, Monica, especially looking at early career folks, there's always people who want to move up at work but aren't really sure how. I was wondering what kind of advice you have for the room about how to coach employees who aspire to advance.
Yes, yes. Well, I always tell people to make sure that they are always being, and I know this is going to sound cliche, but make sure you're being your best self. Make sure you're showing up in the way that you should show up. Take care of the work that you have. It's easy to say you want more if you're not taking care of the things that you need to take care of. So just make sure everything that you have to date is really like rock solid. And then again, kind of leaning into just understanding who within your organization perhaps has the skills that you want, has the role that you want. Take the time to get to know them. People love, I always tell the new grads, people love to talk about themselves, Find someone who's an alumni. Find someone where you may have a common interest. Take the time to understand what are your internal communication channels and understand and find what are some commonalities and reach out to those folks, get to know those folks. Again, you always want to develop yourself, but if you find people within your organization who have those skills, you can learn from them. Most of the time, they're very much willing to help you, and you can use what they have, the knowledge that they have, to impart on you so that you can continue to grow. And then they may give you some tips on approaches to take. They'll tell you what classes to take, which types of different opportunities within the organization that exist for you to continue to develop, and that'll help you to really grow. So there's a lot of different channels that you can take, but making sure that you use the people within your organization and also using your personal network as well.
Yeah, I think a thing that I'll add onto there too is that most companies nowadays have employee networks. Join those employee networks, whether you're a woman or a man or, whatever, whether you're diverse, disability, military, whatever the case may be, join all of the employee networks. There's no set standard that you have to fall into that specific category for the network to be a member. And that's a great way to meet new people. Most companies have a lot of visibility on their networks and is supported by senior leaders. So as you're going to events, that's another opportunity for you to meet people, learn about different groups, volunteer to be a part of the leadership team or manage an event with that network. That's just more ways to get more visibility and get your name out there as well.
I'd love to hear any other tips, what your top tip is for coaching employees from any of the other panelists, and also perhaps, what would you advise people not to do, anything to avoid any types of missteps for people who are looking to advance their careers.
Don't just sit at your desk and do your job.
Oh, yeah.
That's never going to help you advance to the next level. If you I'm just going to sit here and do my job, and that's it, right? Like, that means you want to stay in that job, right? So just make sure you're and I know it's hard a lot of times because people are introverts or shy and things, but you don't have to approach a table of 10 people. You can approach one person and have a one-on-one conversation with them to make you feel more comfortable, right? So I would just say, just make sure that you are exposing yourself and you're putting your best foot forward. Have your elevator speech ready, right? Like, I've given this advice for over 20 years, right? Practice in the mirror, practice saying it to your pet, to your child. Look, my son knows my elevator speech better than me at this point, right? So just, it's okay to practice at home so you're ready at any moment in time, no matter who you're gonna see and who you might meet along the way.
And what is the stat? I think it's 1,000,000% of jobs that exist today will not exist in 2030.
Yes.
So it is, the job that you're in today will not likely exist, and certainly in the same form in 5 years. And I think it's really driving that point home for employees across the organization at all levels, quite honestly, that if you're not developing, if you're not expanding your views and your horizons on what your career can be and building up those skills on a regular, consistent basis, there is a good chance that AI will take your job. There will be some other reason that you will be unemployed or looking for something different. So I think there's a level of urgency that really has to be made clear to employees, because at the most senior levels of an organization right now, there is so much pressure to improve margin, to deal with the drastic amount of change that's taking place in organizations and deliver on shareholder expectations. And that pressure is going to filter its way through the entire organization, and employees have to recognize the importance of that. And that doesn't have to be a moment where you freeze in the lights and you're caught off guard. You can prepare for it, you can own it, but it's a good idea to start today on that.
Yeah. I think the one thing I would say too is you just have to be your authentic self. You know, I was talking with a leader who is now in the executive ranks, and she was saying until she actually made herself vulnerable, talked about things that were just at home and those things, that's when she really started seeing career growth. That's when she really started seeing, hey, people know me just not as this person that's a rule follower and get things done, which is always, table stakes, right? But how she really, just opened up and just created more opportunities for her, and people saw, she was able to get other developmental opportunities that really, I think, showed her true self and it made her kind of go from there.
Mm-hmm. I want to add one more thing that I forgot to mention. When you want to grow your career and you really want to put yourself out there, find out what are some of those special projects that you can be a part of, stretch assignments that are out there. Those have great impacts on your career. You can potentially be exposed to other people who can enable you to be able to grow. I have a story right now. I have a young lady who, she was a BA, and she had interest in doing more. And I told her, hey, well, there's a project over here. They need someone with your skill set. And I knew that she didn't know that, this was going on, but I knew that they were going to open a position. And so I knew that was an opportunity for her to almost audition for that role that was coming. That's what a sponsor does, right? They know what opportunities are out there, and they can put you in a position where you can be able to continue to grow. And she did that stretch assignment for about 3 months. And then when the role came available, they already knew who they wanted. And so take advantage of those opportunities that are out there. And while someone, as she mentioned, don't just do it's easy to say that you want to do that. I get that, right? But know that other opportunities can be an opportunity for you.
Mm-hmm. Monica, that's a great lead-in to my next question, which is, one of the challenges that we see is when employees want to move up more quickly than they are. And so I'm wondering, how do you sell lateral career growth to people who are looking for opportunities to advance? And at Eldridge, I think that you had some good ideas on that.
Yeah. So, career growth, your career is a journey, right? And so, I have a personal story in the sense of when I was working at one organization, they had asked me to take a lateral move. I think I was a senior director at the time, and they're like, hey, we have a senior director in Boston. I was like, well, why am I going to move to Boston for the same job? So, but it really was a great opportunity because it gave me the opportunity to get some extensive labor experience. And obviously we work now, Kai's Permanente, we have a labor partnership, and it really landed me for this opportunity that I have because it gave me some great experience. And as I talk to people, within our organization, I really try to stress how important it is to get critical skills across many levels, right? Because that's the thing that will, give you the opportunity to grow and take advantage. I can think of an opportunity where we have a person that started as a phlebotomist. She was seeing some great career growth. And then she was like, hey, I want to go to this VP level, but she still needed to get some experience around strategy. So now she's in that strategy role, ready to go to that VP level at the next time when it comes available. So it really is just really thinking about how do you take those opportunities as they come.
Yeah, I'll actually give a personal story, and look, it's still a secret. No. But I'm actually in the midst of taking a lateral move into a different role at Honeywell. I'll be moving into the inclusion and diversity space here in a couple of weeks. And I know that I'm going to get the question from people of like, why are you doing that, right? Like, you're already at this level doing, so many great things. But for me, it's kind of similar, right? Like, I've always had a passion around I&D, and I've always had my toe in that space, being in talent acquisition. And I just felt like this would give me another opportunity to continue to develop more skills. My role is going to be supporting the global regions from an I&D space, which is very different than what we experience in the US. So I just feel like I'm going to have more opportunities to gain more skills, meet more people internationally, and just really kind of expose myself to more and different things. So it's still, a way for me to continue to learn and grow, even though on paper it looks like a lateral, right?
Yeah. So we should be saying congratulations,
Yes.
right?
Thank you.
Just congratulations for sure.
Thank you.
I was on a call last night with a client of ours. They have about 7 compensation bands and throughout the organization, and they're getting rid of an entire band. Their earnings call is next week, and they're going to share more details with that about that. But that's a huge chunk. That's tens of thousands of employees, and they're going to move up or they're going to move down. And that's just a microcosm of what so many organizations are going through right now in terms of flattening the organization, going back to the pressures of the CEO, drive margin, gain AI efficiencies. They all fit together. And so I think that's the wave of the future. There's fewer upward opportunities for people across the organization, and that's a new reality. And it's going to be, seeking out those opportunities where you can develop another skill set or build another knowledge base or take on greater responsibility in a different part of the country or world. And those are going to be critical experiences for the leaders of tomorrow. And I think it comes down to a lot of organizations are taking some of the programs that were typically reserved for top of the house and trying to find ways to scale those deeper into the organization. I think we're going to continue to see more and more of that just because you have to. Your leadership pipelines, the scope of responsibility is just going to increase. You read article after article, Gartner, Korn Ferry, everybody's saying managers, middle managers, they're at their wits' end. They don't know what else to do. They can't take on more. How do we equip this critical segment of our population to deal with the pressures that we put on those folks? And equipping them with the leadership skills, the technology skills, and finding ways to develop those people kind of in role and really quickly on things that none of us have actually encountered much yet is going to be really, really important. And so I think we're going to continue to see that. And it's essential that people like yourselves take on those opportunities. And it's going to be our responsibility in the room to make sure that those people are successful when they take on those opportunities.
It's pretty interesting looking at industry dynamics happening across the economy and how it's translating into, how we're looking at unconventional opportunities for people in the workplace. So, I know that there are some creative ways like that to offer career development to people who are ready for it. And I was wondering about how you can take a challenge that you have like having someone in a key position on leave and turning that into a career development opportunity for others. So Melanie, can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So I think the example I'll give for this is one of my peers who was a talent acquisition leader for one division, our Europe position open for talent acquisition. So he took a bubble assignment, what we call a bubble assignment, to support that region for 6 months. And that gave him different exposure to different leaders, more experience on the global level. And then while his position was vacant because he was on that bubble assignment, they gave us an opportunity for someone that is looking to move into leadership to take a bubble assignment filling in for him. So it was just really, it gave like multiple opportunities to multiple people by offering a bubble assignment while they're looking to backfill a role and such and things like that to someone else to be able to continue to grow their career and get more exposure. And as I just mentioned, I'm moving into different roles. So somebody is doing a bubble assignment to cover for my current role until they fill it. And so it's just continuous learning, opportunities to stretch. We talked about stretch assignments. And I think it's just really a way to know what you also kind of figure out what you want to do next, right? You might go on that bubble assignment and be like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna stay where I'm at right now, but it also can be an opportunity for you to be like, oh wait, I really love doing this type of role and seek out future leadership opportunities that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the only thing I will add is, you call them bubble assignments. I think we call them interim assignments. There's so many different ways that you can talk about it, but we really look at that as a part of our true talent planning, journey, if you will, right? Because I can think over the past year, we've had some leadership positions that have opened for various reasons. And I think we've been really being able to, create a lot of synergy, positive budget growth, those type things, because you've been able to take advantage of those interim assignments. And some have turned into permanent and just really created the right leadership structure across the board for us to kind of continue to grow. So it's such a critical part of the talent planning journey and development journey.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to ask about your thoughts about some of one of the timely topics today, which is a lot of the changes that we've been seeing in the DEI landscape and the legal backdrop there. And so I'm wondering how you all are navigating this and what remains important when it comes to inclusivity in your career development programs. So Monica, can you share with us your perspective on that?
Sure. When you think about inclusivity and just the purpose of it is to just make sure that you're giving everyone an opportunity to thrive. And so, regardless of what's happening, maybe externally, I know our CEO is committed to staying the course to make sure that we continue to develop our employees, that we continue to find ways to be inclusive. And so for that purpose, we have a philosophy, again, which I mentioned earlier, which is called skills first. And so we really lean into that. So we look at, what are the skills that this person has, whether they're coming in the door or they're here with us. How does that compare to the roles that we have? And making sure that person meets that particular need. So just really making sure that we lean into the skills that person has versus perhaps the relationship, right? And those are ways that we help to foster inclusion so that everyone who has the skill set that we need for maybe a role or an opportunity is given that. And we coach them along the way to be able to make sure that they're able to sell themselves from a TA perspective.
And it's really hard, right? Like I just told you all I'm going into an inclusion diversity role, right?
Yeah.
So when I was going through the interview process, this was very important to me, understanding, the executive orders that's been signed and things. And, I directly asked my CHRO, like, what is Honeywell's stance? Are we changing our path when it comes to I&D? And it just so happened I spoke with her the day after a global town hall where our CEO doubled down and said, we are still committed to inclusion and diversity. We will continue on with the things that we have in place currently. And so when that conversation with the CHRO was very similar to that, because of course, I was scared too, as a woman, as a person of color, then going into I&D, I'm like, am I making a crazy decision, right? And so it was comforting to know that the company is still committed and that we will continue our path forward from an I&D perspective. So it is difficult. It's a difficult time right now, but I think it's important for the leaders of companies to really make sure that their employees understand what their plan is, so then the employees are fully aware and understand what's going to happen as we move forward.
Yeah, it's a great point. I was thinking when you said you were going to the role, I'm sure it's like,
I was too.
like, oh.
Listen, can I just tell y'all, my parents were like, you doing what now?
But, it really is about what is the mission of the company. And so at Kaiser Permanente, our mission is to provide affordable quality health care for our members, but also in the communities we serve. And so our DEI strategy is connected just to that. So it's about health equity, being in the community, and then of course, providing developmental opportunities for our workforce so they can see that. So making sure that we match that in every way. So we still are focused in doing that. We just had a great MLK volunteer event. And that's a way that people can develop their careers too, right? Because they can get into the BRG groups that you talked about and truly have opportunities that they can show leadership skills, organizational skills, and really drive that. When we were at the MLK event, we had a person that was like, well, Mr. Banks, you need to be here doing this. And I was like, okay, let me get in line. So those are the type of things that kind of really drive it and kind of go from there.
Yeah, and I'll speak from the vendor side to an extent. If you're not familiar with SHL, we do assessments primarily. So pre-employment assessments, leadership development assessments, kind of runs the gamut. And it's been very important to us to ensure that our assessments are both objective and fair throughout the history of SHL. And there's been some changes over the past week that have taken us all, maybe not off guard. There were signals, but certainly changed the landscape for us all. And I think, when it comes down to it, though, is you're getting to the essence of, can an employee or can an individual do a job or work at a certain level, I think there's still such a driving desire by organizations to be regarded as fair, equitable organizations. I think when you get down into it in organizations, that fundamental need and desire is not going to change. And again, I point to the people in this room to make sure that that doesn't get lost. But I do think that from the vendor side, there may be changes that we have to confront and different laws that we have to be aware of. But in terms of, do your selection, development, high potential programs still meet the level of standard that is required? Maybe it's not even the law anymore. Maybe it's clients kind of driving what those standards and expectations need to be. And I don't see that changing much, thankfully.
And I mean, just to kind of piggyback, like, you know, when we think about just equity and fairness, it's not necessarily tied to what's happening, you know, politically around us. We're a global organization as well. So, you know, we're not stationed in one particular country. So we're mindful of that. We have stakeholders and clients all over the world. And so just getting down to the root of, let's make sure all of our practices are equitable, that they're fair, that our decisions that we make are fair. That's the root cause of what we try to accomplish on day in and day out.
You know, I'm kind of curious, you know, in times of change like this, a lot of times, you know, it can be helpful to turn to data to figure out a way to move forward and how to be effective. Jason, are there particular types of data that that companies are looking for, you know, over the past week to look at, you know, how to move forward effectively?
Yeah, I mentioned a few minutes ago how companies are taking these programs that were typically reserved for top of the house and pushing those down in scalable ways into the organization. And one just quick example is like SHL's Global Skills Assessment. It's about a 15-minute assessment, measures like 96 skills that kind of cover the world of work and professional roles. It's really quick, and it gives employees a lot of information about their own skill set. They can start to look at those bubble assignments and see, is this going to be a strength or a stretch? And you also have that sponsor, that new manager in that assignment also can see that information if the employee chooses to share it, such that they can know what they're getting and know where they can help this individual who's stepping into this bubble assignment or this new role. And then, you know, you start to aggregate that across an organization and you have a view of your talent and all the skills and how do those line up against the strategic and operational priorities of the organization. And so it equips the organization as well. But it still comes down to, I think it's really important for employees to feel like they're being supported through these initiatives and they have tools at their disposal, instead of their skills being scraped off the internet and inferred and put into a database and they don't know how it works and they don't really have line of sight to it. Information that's collected from them on their own and then presented back to them in terms of where their skills, opportunities, and gaps are is really well received.
So, you know, Eldridge, you mentioned the mission at Kaiser, and I was wondering about how you prioritize preserving the core of your company culture when you're developing leaders, while also, you know, looking to the future and how to evolve. How do you approach that?
Yeah, so, you know, I think it really gets back to just making sure that you remain focused on that core when you think about development. I think when I think about some of our, you know, leaders that have been really ingrained in our business for years, and we have the fortune to have, you know, some people that have some great tenure with the organization. It really is focused on how they are able to see opportunities across all the board over those years and how they kind of grow. I think countless times I hear stories where somebody has started as a truly technician on the phones as a customer service agent, but has gained managerial skills through those times over years to really be able to get to that level. So I think that's some of the key components of, you know, just seeing a career trajectory that gives you the opportunity to have those things. That's also ingrained in the mission that you love, right? When we look at like people pulse scores, organizational health scores, when people are connected to the mission and how things are going, that's what really allows people to drive things forward from there.
At State Street, we have culture traits, and it's something that is pretty much everywhere. You see it all the time. When we have town halls, it's touched on. when we have end of year reviews is touched on. And those are the things, it's 5 in total, but those are the things that we look for all of our employees to embody, particularly our leaders. When we go through the interview process, it's something that we touch on. And so when we think about being able to stay true to the culture of who we are, we think about that for incoming talent. We think about that for folks who are with us, and we want them to grow. And then we also think about those things when it's a time to say, hey, is this person really a fit for us? You know, are they honoring the people around them? Are they looking to do better every day? So just thinking about what our culture traits are, staying true to that, really kind of drilling it into the team and making sure that we embody that.
Yeah.
Great. So final question, I was wondering if you all might have a top tip for using career development for retention and how you make sure that your workforce is aware of the opportunities to grow within the company. Perhaps we could, Melanie, if you want to start.
Yeah. So one thing I feel like we haven't talked about on this panel is IDP, so individual development plans. And so at Honeywell, you actually have to revise your IDP twice a year, which for me, I was like, I just did this. Like, why am I doing this again, right? Like, but what it makes you do is really look at what did you put down before? Have you achieved anything that you put on there before? If you have, switch it out with a new goal that you have for yourself from a development standpoint. And I think the other thing that's unique too is that as a part of performance reviews, there's a section in there where the manager has to input what they feel like the development goals should be for that employee. And then that employee can then input that into their development plan and write down ideas on how they're going to achieve those goals. So I think IDPs are a great thing. It really just, once you have something written down, it makes it visual, it makes it attainable. And when you're updating it twice a year like that, it just really keeps it fresh in your mind and top of mind on top of the development days and webinars and things like that too.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I have this saying that closed mouths don't get fed. By that, I mean, in so many different ways, if you aren't speaking up about what you want from an opportunity standpoint, if you aren't out building relationship across, you know, business lines and understanding what makes the business tick and what things going, it kind of keeps you out of the game from a developmental opportunity. So truly making sure that you take advantage of those opportunities, making sure people understand, making sure there's vulnerability, all of those things equate to career growth and making sure that you have developmental opportunities. So I think that's why I would kind of lay it solely there.
To piggyback on what he said, make sure people know what you want to do. You know, it is your job to make sure that you are driving your career. So whatever your ultimate goal is, whether that's to be a CHRO one day or maybe to be a manager, but that you're making it known. I think that's the main thing, is that your manager knows what you ultimately want to do. That is very clear, so that as everything happens, the opportunities that are afforded to you, that they're aware, that the manager knows, your manager knows, and you're driving towards that as well.
One more thing I'll add in, is we also didn't talk a lot about succession plans. So if there's a role that you're interested in, make sure you talk to the person that's currently in that role, because I guarantee you they have to put someone on their succession plan, some 1, some 2, some 5, right? So if they know that you have an interest in that role, they can then add you to the succession plan. So then that way your name is coming up in those right conversations when they're talking about talent.
And retention is the new talent acquisition. I've heard that a few times, and I think it's very, very true. As you know, some organizations do a really good job of kind of being providers of talent, and some are hoarders of talent. We all have those within our organizations. I think more and more important for organizations to take the view of we have to encourage and promote talent sharing as opposed to talent hoarding, and make sure that the opportunities are available to people. They're visible, they're accessible, and they know what they need to do to achieve those to get into those other roles.
That's a good one.
Well, this was a really amazing panel. I heard some great ideas, some great programs, and some excellent tips from you all about how to help people advance their careers and to use that as a competitive advantage. So I really learned a lot, and I hope that you all did too. And please join me in thanking our panelists.